Speaking of progress, progress requires one thing more than all else. Do you know what that is? Effort. In diplomacy, that means political will. Leaders must be willing to make an effort. If not, diplomatic relations will continue to worsen. Take Pakistan, for example. Every year, they bring the same broken record to the United Nations. They talk about Kashmir. They accuse India of human rights violation, and then they leave. This year, sadly, was no different. Our correspondent Anas Malik was in the United States tracking the Pakistani delegation. He managed to have an exclusive chat with Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Well, they did talk about Pakistan's relationship with India. Listen in now to Bhutto's response.
Strong bilateral relations with many countries, and we've had a stumbling block when it came to India. The stumbling block for India has been that after August 2019, the path to peace between our two countries has been incredibly difficult. It is important for us to have managing relationships with anyone, reasonable relationships with anyone. But as I said in the answer to the earlier question, that until August 2019 is addressed, even those who believe in a more extensive relationship with India will find it difficult to have that conversation.
You heard him. He keeps talking about August 2019. What exactly happened back then? In 2019, India abrogated Article 370 and ended statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. The region was divided into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. With this move, Kashmir lost its special privileges. It was brought to the same level as other Indian territories. But Pakistan was not too happy with this. It condemned India's decision. It also cut off normal trade relations with India. Remember, that was under former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Now there is a new regime in Islamabad. But the question is, will it be any different? Initially, there was some hope. Bilateral trade between India and Pakistan increased rapidly in the first quarter of this fiscal year. India's exports rose 72% from last year. So what explains this pivot? From a trade ban in 2019 to rising exports in 2022. The simple answer is the economic crisis. Pakistan was forced to import goods from India. But beyond that, is there any political effort? That's what we seek to answer. Once again, let's now turn to Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. A couple of days back, he was speaking at the Wilson Center in Washington. He was asked about Pakistan's policy towards India. Bhutto unleashed what can only be described as a rant. You have to hear it to believe it.
From our perspective, this is a very different India. Mr. Modi is not Mr. Manmohan Singh or even Mr. Vajpayee. He is the same Prime Minister who, until he became Prime Minister, could not come to the United States. You wouldn't give him a visa because of the massacre that occurred in Gujarat.
I will admit one thing though, Pakistan has not changed at all in the last 7 decades. They sponsored terror groups in the 1950s. They continue to sponsor terror groups in the 2020s as well. Kudos for policy continuity at least. And as for his arguments, both of them are unacceptable. Bhutto says that Article 370 is the big issue for Pakistan. First of all, the move in 2019 was India's sovereign decision. It does not concern Pakistan or any other neighbor for that matter. Secondly, such an argument ignores the past. Was Pakistan the perfect neighbor before 2019? We all know the answer to that question. So Article 370 is a convenient political argument for Pakistan. It has no legal or logical basis whatsoever. Let's now come to Bhutto's second issue. It is with the current Indian leadership. Again, it's none of his business. Unlike Pakistan, India is a democratic country which elects leaders with free and fair elections. We don't have generals lording over politicians. Plus, the current leadership has repeatedly tried to mend relations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited Nawaz Sharif to his swearing-in ceremony back in 2014. The next year, he made a surprise visit to Pakistan. It was the first by an Indian Prime Minister in more than 10 years. So how did Pakistan respond? With two brutal terror attacks in 2016. One in Pathankot and another in Uri. Most Indian governments have had the same experience. They try to take one step forward and Pakistan responds with proxy and terror attacks. My point is this: Bhutto has got the narrative completely wrong. Relations are worsening not because India has changed, they are worsening because Pakistan has not changed. Their army continues to drive their foreign policy. Their deep state continues to support terror groups. And that is the big issue on the Indian side, as it should be. Prime Minister Modi himself spelled it out. Terror and talks cannot go hand in hand. So if Pakistan is serious about normalizing ties, it must introspect. Big statements in the United States will not repair relations. Pakistan must make meaningful efforts and it must earn India's trust. But sadly, looking at the track record, I wouldn't hold my breath. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.